Is that the record button? It is. I won't tell you how long I have been trying to find that button to actually start recording, but it's fine. Hello everybody, welcome back to another month of all of this bullcrap. It is currently April. It is the end of April, meaning that it's about to be freaking May. I just want to say before we get into this, I know that it kind of looks like I am in some sort of a garage or in some sort of a actual freaking bunker, but I'm in my basement right now and I'm living my best life. It is in this very room that I filmed such hit videos as that video where I was really upset about how everybody hated me. Wow, what great memories we've had in this room. So I'm here, I'm living my best life. Actually, I'm not living my best life, but we'll talk about that maybe later. I've spent all day like bleaching all of my clothes so they look cool. This is one of the, I actually did this one a while ago. Should I do a body tour? That was it. But today I spent like most of the morning like bleaching pants that I had. Like I ordered pants and so I bleached the pants and then they turned out freaking terrible. And for some reason, I think because they were like slim fit, they did not fit to my skinny body with the bleach. They just get like stretched out. And so they were really baggy and gross and made it look like I had a diaper on. So I was like, that's really sad. And so then I got rid of those. I was like, that's $30 down the drain. Love that. But then I had these other pair of pants and they were really, really freaking skinny just because I got them a couple years ago. And so like homeboy don't really fit them anymore. And so I was like, maybe I'll do these. And they haven't fit for a hot minute, but maybe they'll stretch out and then they'll fit. And then I did those and that was like a long freaking process to do that, and they turned out really not that great. And then I was really upset again, and so I've just ruined like 3 or 4 pairs of jeans lately, and it's just devastating. And it's because I saw this one TikTok of this person that was like, here's how to do it, and then they did it and they looked so freaking good, and I was so jealous. And I've tried so many times, and every time it's like so awful. And I'm devastated, so that's what I've been doing. So I just want to say, if it seems like I'm kind of low-key out of it in this video, not only is it really late, and also we're coming to the end of the semester, so that's why, but also I might be high off of bleach fumes. Because there's one shirt that I did, and I like did it where you get like the fork and you do it because I was going to do it like a tie-dye. Because for this one and like a couple other ones, I just sort of like splattered it on and like rubbed it in certain areas. And then I started to do it in my bathtub. And as I was like, I had gloves on, I was like pressing the gloves in so it like soaked in better. It was getting really hot. The fabric felt very, very hot. And I was like, that's weird. And then it started like smoking, and I still don't know what the frig happened because I bleached a shirt and it started smoking and nothing came up. This is the only time in my life I Googled something and there were 0 search results for it. And I straight up don't know what to do. So I washed and dried it and it literally came out of the dryer and it was like a rag. Like it like ripped into shreds. So if you're wondering what my day was like, I breathed in burnt bleach fumes from a shirt. And I'm high now, so that's cool. But anyways, the winning topic for this month was my writing projects. And so it was pretty vague, but in my opinion, I thought that it was going to be just me talking about all of my writing projects and what they are, how they're going, the status of the writing projects, and like sort of where they're at in the journey of me writing them. I know it was pretty vague, but it's interesting to me that people care about my writing because I feel like I've never really talked about it besides just saying like I write, and then people are like, ooh. Not all the details, obviously, just because I've always been kind of secret about them, just because I don't love the idea of blasting all of this information out there, and then the idea of like someone stealing that is not the best. But also a lot of things are subject to change where it's like I don't want to be like this is a thing and then it's not. But I guess since this is a more exclusive platform, I do feel a little bit more comfortable sharing like a couple of details that are a little bit more intimate, if you know what I'm saying. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And in this process, I realized that I have a lot of terrible freaking ideas. So I thought we would go in somewhat chronological order. We're going to be starting with the first book I wrote, and then we're going to sort of go down. And then once we get past all of my main ideas, I'm going to be talking about like seeds of ideas that I've had where they're not books that I've written or even planned, planned, but they're like ideas that I might work on eventually, or just things that I've sort of mentally worked on a little bit. I've only written a couple of these, and a lot of them are also like not written yet, because I'm the type of person where it's like I like to plan everything out in advance, or at least have most of the stuff planned out in advance before I want to like get into it. So a lot of these are like ideas that I have like entirely planned out, but there's like a couple of plot holes or a couple of things that I haven't really worked out yet, so I don't want to like sit down and write all of it out. But I would consider my first like real person book was the book that I shared on my YouTube channel a freaking hot minute ago, and it was called Ruler of the Stars. I have an entire video where I talked about it, and it was trash, obviously. It was a pretty high concept novel, I think, but essentially the idea was like a girl who's like it's like a planet, and it's run by this monarch. It's like the princess, and so she makes the law to make space travel for this planet country illegal. And it was supposed to be ironic that she ends up spending the entire book space traveling and ends up becoming like a space traveler. I have an entire video talking about it, and it's like really freaking awful. But I don't think I ever said in that video what inspired that book, and it was mostly based off of me and my friends. We had like a stupid childhood game. I don't know if you and your childhood friends have a stupid childhood game. I don't know if you do, leave a comment. But that was very much inspired off of this stupid game we used to play, and it was like very based off of like Mario video games and like weird things that we used to watch when we were kids. And so it was a lot of like really stupid childish ideas where it was like, we're space travelers and there's like a princess and like all this stupid bull crap. And I remember like being like, I don't know, 8 or 9, and being like, I'm gonna publish this into a book series one day. And because I was writing pig fan fiction back then, and I was like, I'm gonna write this into a real book one day, and it's gonna be a #1 New York Times bestseller. And then like 4 or 5, 6 years later, I did, and it was not very good. But that was sort of my first experience writing stuff, and I think because I knew like going in I wanted to write those ideas, it just was a flop. I have an entire video where I read a lot of the manuscript and sort of walked through the plot and stuff, so you can watch that if you haven't. But it was just a mess, and I'm really happy for that book because I think it taught me. That was my first time ever writing a full-length book, where I think it was like 56,000 words, so it was like 200 something pages. And so that was like my first time ever writing like a real book, and I remember that was the first time that I felt disciplined as a writer, where I was actually like doing NaNoWriMo, so you sort of have to be disciplined where you have to like write your word counts every day. So that was the first project I ever wrote. I don't plan on revisiting that at all, just because it's not where my heart is at nowadays. I know when I made that video, a lot of people were saying like that I had a lot of good ideas, and that if I sort of reworked things that I could make it better, but I don't want to. I feel like I did what I wanted to do. I feel like I took a lot away from that. I felt like I was disciplined, and so I sort of learned how to write on a schedule, and I learned how to plot a book and sort of work out plot things, which is my first time ever doing that. So I was happy with that. I don't want to ever revisit it again, but whatever. So after I had finished that book, I knew that it was going to be a series, because obviously it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be 2 books or 3 books. I assumed it was probably going to be 3 because it was 2014 and that's all we had back then. And so I did know that book 2 was going to be called Ruler of the Cosmos, and I really don't know where that book was headed. All I had was like very small and vague ideas about what was gonna happen. Don't know if anyone watched that video, but basically there's a character named Zephyr, and she was like a Barvin, which is like an evil like space dragon essentially. And so I knew that she was one of those, and at the end of the book I knew that she flew into space, and so I knew that later on in Ruler of the Cosmos she was gonna come back, and she was gonna be like very, very pregnant, and that she was gonna give birth to a son. And I also just knew that the character Jamori, who was the evil spaceman with green skin and ginger hair, I knew that he was gonna maybe come back to life, or I was gonna introduce like a contrived other villain. And I also knew that the like queen was evil as well, so I did know that she was gonna be a big part of it. Writing the first book was like, it just had a lot of loose threads where it's like, I'm probably gonna wrap this up later. And now it's like, I don't think I ever was at all, ever. It didn't take very long for me to realize that that wasn't the project for me, because I wrote that in November 2014. I finished writing it, I think January or February 2015. And then I came up with the idea for this new book that I'm about to talk about in April of 2015. And I plotted the whole thing out in April of 2015. And it's a book that I am still working on to this freaking day. So that book is the book called that's not what it's freaking called. The Cost of Bravery, which I know is a freaking weird title, okay? I announced this title just because I was like, I'm working on this freaking book for like years ago, I'm talking. And to this day, I will still get people that are like, that's a bad freaking title. Like, it's basic. People think it's freaking basic. And I know. Okay, I know like the blank of blank is stupid, but if you read the book, I think the title, The Cost of Bravery, would mean like so much more. And maybe it's just me being like an author where it's like, my work is so good and like life changing. Like, that's not what I'm freaking saying. What I'm saying is like the title makes sense. And I named it very specifically because I didn't title the book until I was like very far into the writing process. And so the title sort of came as a response to what the book had meant to me and sort of the natural themes that I saw taking place. Like, it wasn't just a stupid like a court of blank and blank where it means absolutely nothing and you just feel like it was picked in a marketing meeting. I don't know. Maybe it's just I love this book so much because it's just grown so much over the years. And so I just feel like anyone who is trying to talk trash, get the frig out. I don't know if I've ever talked about the actual plot or any ideas of what the synopsis could be about, but I feel like I'm going to share a little bit because I'm high on bleach and I just feel like I'm ready to spill. So basically this is like a medieval type fantasy novel. There's no magic or anything, but it does take place on a fictional continent, which I had a lot of fun being like 14 or 15 years old and just being like, it's a map. 2 years later, I was like, it is not a map and we have to redraw all these lines. And I feel like I still need to redraw the lines because there are certain decisions with the geography that does not make sense. There's a country where it's like really cold and wintry, and then like north, it's like a desert, where it's like, that's not how that works. So I need to do that. But also there's a lot of like travel, and also not necessarily travel, but like I'm running for my life. To me, it's not believable that someone went like all the way across the country or like the continent. I mean, like, there's no way you freaking did that, girl, unless I scaled down the entire continent. But I don't know how I would work with that. But basically, because so much relies on like escaping this country and fleeing to this country, like they kind of have to be close together. And so it's like, do I just like not care? Do I like put a mountain there so like it makes kind of sense? But this girl did not climb a mountain on the run. So essentially the basic synopsis is this, and if you steal it, I will in fact kill you. Basically it's about this chick who I won't tell you her name because I feel like y'all will make fun of it, honestly. But basically this chick is living her best life. She lives in like this sort of agricultural country. It's very peaceful. And so she lives her best life. She's a farmer. Her family's farmers. And they travel to the markets and they sell stuff because sort of at the border of her country, there's like a nice trading dock. I feel like I need to show you the map. Her father serves on like the council in this country. So he does like political work in the town and stuff. And so he's like a higher up dude. And so in the beginning of the book, she's living her best life, getting all these crops, and like night passes and she's trying to finish up her row of her field so that she can come home. And like she loves going to the freaking market with her family. And so she's like, me and my brother and my mom, we're gonna travel. So I'm like, finish all this up and then I'll bring it and surprise them. And then tomorrow we'll go. And so she goes, and when she enters, she sees that her brother and her mother have been brutally murdered. And she's like, what the frick is going on? She's obviously distraught. And so she drops all her vegetables and they're freaking covered in blood. I had a wild time describing all of this. She sees that in the corner, there's like a note that's covered in blood. And it just says like, I'm sorry. And it has her father's name. His name is Morven. And I feel like when I say names out loud, like I realize how stupid they are, but his name is Morven. And so she sees that it's signed by him. And so she realizes that her father did it. And she's like, I don't know why. Because her family has always been so perfect. And so she's like, I don't know why my father would ever do this. The guards of this town burst in, not listening to her, but they're like grabbing her and pushing her out. And she's like, what's going on? Like, I need your help. And then they take her to the freaking dungeon. And she's like, what did I freaking do? And then she hears the guards say, like, this is the girl Morven told us about. She went crazy and killed her family. And so she stays in this jail cell and she's like rotting away. That's sort of the beginning, is that her father killed her family and she doesn't know why. And in her head, her family was always perfect and she doesn't know why that would ever lead to that. And so the book takes place about a year later, and she is at the docks and she is trying to move away to make a new life for herself. And sort of the events that led her to get there are a little bit unclear. And so it's her making a new life for herself, trying to escape her past, but also being filled with revenge and trying to find her father. But that's the basic idea of the book. And I've been working on it for a very long time. I wrote it in 2015. I wrote the first draft, which was trash, by the way. It is absolutely garbage, but the ideas are there where I feel like I'm still proud of it. But I wrote it in 2015. I reworked the entire thing and rewrote it in 2017. And then in 2018, I worked on it more. And then this past year, I went on a little bit more for NaNoWriMo and sort of been chipping away at certain things. I love the project so much. I love the main character so much. I love her emotional journey, and I love just so much of it. It feels very close to my heart, and I feel like in a lot of ways the book is, I don't know if I want to say it's like an ode to like the child in me in a weird way, where it's like it's really dark and sad. So I'm not saying like it's an ode to my childhood, how this chick is getting like murdered all the freaking time. I'm just saying, like, I think because I came up with the idea when I was really young, and so I got to see like a very immature idea become like more grown up and more developed. I think because I got to see so many different versions of the story and see it grow with me, it feels very nostalgic, and it feels like just, I love it so much, and I love how it's grown. I've worked on it for a really long time, and I think in November I officially decided that I was going to stop working on it because I've been working on it for so long. Not forever. I'm gonna obviously come back. I've spent too freaking long at this point to give up on that story, and I do love it so much. It's gonna be a duology. The second book is called The Cost of Revenge. I just feel like I don't want to write it for a while because it is the love of my life. Don't get me wrong, I love her. Okay, I worked freaking endless hours on her. I feel like my first couple of NaNoWriMos, I learned very specific things with each NaNoWriMo, where my first NaNoWriMo, I sort of learned how to write a book and sort of finding my writing style. And then for my next novel, which was this one, I learned how to write characters more. I learned how to like draw maps and like write sort of traveling in different locations, and it's like pretty large in scope, so there's that. And then for my third NaNoWriMo, it was a contemporary novel, which we're going to talk about that in a hot second, but that book was very hot, like dialogue heavy, and there's a lot of fun moments with characters and there's a lot of humor. I think because of those first three, they all taught me something really important in their own ways, and I feel like because after those three, I spent the next 3 years rewriting the same story. It sort of, I don't want to say it pulled me back a little bit, but I feel like my writing has been very stagnant because I've been working on the same exact thing for so long. And I feel like when you do work on something for so long, you run into a trap of like trying to rewrite it, but also there have been so many different versions of the story where it's hard to figure out which one you like the most, where there are certain sections of the book that I've written 3 or 4 times now, and rereading all of them, it's like they have their growth in their own ways, but also I don't know which one I feel the best about. And I don't, like, there's certain ones where the voice is very specific, but it's not the plot I want. There's other ones where I feel like dialogue is perfect and the characters are perfect, but the tone isn't there. And so I feel like because it just feels like a mess, where it feels like certain parts I'm really happy with and others I'm not happy with, and there's certain plot things that have evolved, but like with other drafts they're not a thing anymore. So it's difficult to figure out, and it's difficult to sort of know where I want the project to go. I don't know, I do feel like I'm gonna revisit it. I just think for now I want to take a couple years off from it, and I want to write other things and develop my writing voice and sort of figure out how to write different stories. So I think I just fell into the trap of writing the same thing, and it doesn't get boring, but it does just get like you want to write other things. So this next book is another book that I planned in 2015. It wasn't planned in 20, but the idea was birthed in 2015, and I would say a year or two later is when I really figured out what I wanted to do with the project. And so it is a book called, and this title is freaking awful, and I know it, okay? I don't know what to title it, honestly. I knew that I wanted the title to do something with the word light, or like bright, or like morning, or dawn, or any of that. So I knew I wanted it to be something like that, because I wanted the first book title and the second book title to be like mirrors of each other in a way. And so the sequel, I'm not even gonna tell you what the sequel's title is, because I love it so much. And it is so like subtle to what happens, and so like beautiful. I hate to pat myself, like it's a beautiful title, but it is, okay? I wanted the first book to be like the antithesis of said other title, because so much changes between those two books. And so it's called The Dawn of Love, which is freaking basic and freaking awful, and I'm so sorry to say that, but I hate it. And I know that there is like other books that exist with that title out there. Basically, this book is about the plague, which is bad timing on my part, because I was planning this out and it just feels like too timely now, so I don't really feel so great about that. This book is a duology, and so it's mentally planned out. I know what happens in both of the books. The only reason why I haven't like officially decided like I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna write both these books is because there is one plot hole in the first book, and because of this I don't know what to do. Okay, so basically I'll tell you the idea. It's again like a medieval type world, a medieval fantasy book, but there is a lot of magic. Not like a lot of magic, but there's like witches and like a little bit of magic. Okay, so basically a homegirl is living her best life in her hometown, and the plague is killing everybody. Like, it is the type of plague where you get the plague and you're freaking dead. Everyone's coughing up blood. People are walking to the gallows to like hang themselves because they don't want to suffer for a couple of weeks before they inevitably die. It's freaking rough, okay? And so homegirl is in her town, and her whole family, her and her two parents, they get the plague. Her parents are like trying to figure out an antidote, and so they like are working on it. And then eventually her parents get too sick. With this random antidote that her parents made, like all three of them take it, and then her parents die, but then she randomly gets freaking better. And so she doesn't know what's going on. And so somehow, because I haven't written it yet, so I don't know how yet, the royal guard find this, and so they bring her to the castle to figure out what's going on. And it turns out that the king has this plague, and so they assign her to do it, but she has no idea how to do it. And so she's basically trying to figure out what's going on, but also on top of this, like, she kind of starts to fall in love with the prince, and there's other types of conflicts that start, and it's really freaking wild, and I love it so much. It maybe sounds a little bit weird and sounds a little bit basic and sounds like something that's been done before, but like, there are so many different things about it where I'm so excited, and the only reason I haven't officially decided to write it yet is because I don't know how things work out where I know the progression of things, and I won't tell you what happens because I'm hoping that you'll all want to read it one day, but like, I know what happens in the midpoint, okay? So I know that things eventually figure themselves out at the midpoint, okay? And I know that everything goes to chaos in the second half as it is, but I don't know how we get to the point where everything is fine and then where everything isn't. And so I think because I just don't know what happens at certain points where it's like, it's a mystery. And so we're trying to figure out why this chick survived, but also on top of that, we're trying to figure out an antidote. And I know the reason for the plague, but I don't know how our characters are supposed to be working on figuring out that, because it's a mystery and it's like sort of a clues type thing where they figure it out. And it's like so many weird things to write a mystery where I don't even know where to start. And so I think because of that, I've just been working that out in my head. And I need to brainstorm, and I've been brainstorming for like actually 2 years, and I still don't know. But I have both books planned out. I'm so excited to write them. Book 2 is really freaking dark and emotional, and I love it so much, and I'm excited because there's a lot of twists. Oh my. There's a lot of twists, and it's crazy. Okay, so the next project is a project that I'm currently working on. I've been working on it for like 2 months-ish. I've just been planning things out mentally and also sort of like officially getting things down, and I'm almost positive that this is going to be the story that I'm going to write for NaNoWriMo 2020. It is very different from anything that I've ever planned or written before, and I'm so excited. I don't have any title for it. Right now it's called Dragon Book. Because there's dragons in it. From my understanding, at the moment, it is a 4-book series. I've never written a series that long before. The longest I've ever planned out is 2. And this series reminds me of like classic fantasy epics. And I hate to say that because I hate to be like, that's right, y'all, I'm writing the next Lord of the Rings. But I do mean like, they remind me of like very classic stories, and it's different than anything I've written because in The Cost of Bravery, it's very dark. And it's very, and I hate to say that because it's like, what does that even mean? But it's just very heavy, I guess, where there's a lot of talk about like, what is the cost of being brave? And like, this character feels so damaged to the point where it's like, can I ever feel like a normal person again? And it's sort of very heavy with identity and figuring out who you are in the midst of tragedy. And a lot of my books deal with sort of big questions like that, or just sort of sad stuff happens where people die like all the freaking time. It's so upsetting. People are getting like their freaking, I won't say what happens, but people get tortured in these books, y'all. And it's like kind of graphic and sad. And so this is the only one where it feels like upbeat, where like sad stuff, like her father gets eaten by a dragon, y'all. But I am also saying like it still feels lighthearted and fun. So basically the idea of this series is very high concept, which might be a little bit too high concept for me, if you know what I'm saying. The setup of the world is very steampunky, where there's like floating islands in the sky, and it's like a very magic heavy world. So there's a lot of like twisty type magic, and on these different islands there's different types of magic. There's like a magic where everybody tells the truth. There's like other ones where it's sort of like other types of magic, as you may know. And so it's a lot of stuff like that. Floating islands, and to travel around, there's like these ships that fly, which sounds really freaking awful and weird, but like it's like just something where it's like, ignore the physics, but we're in the sky and we're rowing our freaking boat. I saw concept art of it on Pinterest and I thought it was really rad, and I pinned a lot of it like 5 years ago and I thought it was cool, and I saved it, and now I'm writing a book about it. Okay, who cares? Dragons haven't been around for a hot minute, and so this chick is like on a council meeting with her father, another father who's on the council. He does not murder anyone, don't worry. They're at this council meeting, like figuring stuff out about why the dragons are returning, and then the dragons show up. And they start like attacking, because they met on like a small island, a small floating island with their floating ships. And so they meet up on this island, and then the dragons randomly appear and they start like attacking the island. They're like burning it, and they're like not even trying to like, you know, kill the people. They're like crashing into the island. So it's like exploding, and this dragon like enters into this chick. And so the rest of the book is her like slowly dying because she has the soul of a dragon in her, and like she's shape-shifting into a dragon, and she's trying to figure out a cure and figure out what's going on. I feel like I told you too much, but who cares? And it is just so fun, and I have the entirety of book 1 plotted out. There is only a few small details that I don't have, and there's only like one section where it's like I don't quite know what happens there, where it's like I know that this leads to this, but I feel like there needs to be something else in there, and I haven't figured it out yet. I just realized I completely forgot to talk about one of my books. Frick, that sucks for me. But yeah, that was the dragon book. I'm gonna be working on that soon. I'm currently planning it, and I have a majority of it ready. NaNoWriMo 2020 is probably going to be when I officially write that, and I'm excited. Let's go back to 2016. I forgot to tell you about one of my books because I'm good at planning stuff. So I did write a contemporary novel. Was it good? I still don't know. Okay, because here's the thing. It is a book that I had originally not planned. I had the idea in 2013, okay, and I got this idea in 2013 as I was sitting in Chicago at Veronica Roth's Allegiant book signing, and it was because before she came out and talked, there was this random woman who worked for the bookshop, and she was like, we have bookish themed summer camps going on. And so for some reason, as a 13-year-old, that just hit me in a place in my heart. And I was like, you know what? Bookish summer camp. And around this point, I had read Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, where it's like they go to a summer camp and it's like book themed. So there's like book references. It's like kind of stupid. It really freaking is. And you don't have to, it's really dumb and image. It's like Wattpad. It's Wattpad fan fiction, basically. I planned it out in 2016. I wrote it in 2016, I finished it in 2017, and I had a freaking blast. There's the main character, his name is Samson. He's like a pretty cool kid. He likes to read, obviously, because he's at the summer camp. There's also this other chick, her name is Delilah. I do, in fact, name them Samson and Delilah on purpose. It's broke up into different, like, cabins, and so the cabins are like the poetry cabin and like the fantasy cabin, 2 different cabins. So there's like a poetry boys cabin, a poetry girls cabin, because obviously we can't be in the same cabins, you know, it's like summer camp. And so for some reason, like, it works out where all of our main characters sign up for like the trash cabin, which is like the classic literature cabin, which wasn't me digging at classic books. It was just like, I feel like if you're like 15, you're not like, I'm gonna sign up for the classical, like, you know what I mean. That's where I was coming from with that. The bus breaks down for Samson, so he's there late. The 2 girls, like, they can't find a ride or like an Uber, so they like walk a couple miles to get there, and they show up really late. And then the kid Brenton, he's like an outcast weird guy, so he just signs up because he wanted to be alone. And because they like were renovating the camp or something, the girls' cabin fell down. So all 4 of them are in this really trash small cabin with this camp counselor. Like, he lives with them basically because he doesn't trust them enough to be their boys and girls. And he's like the weirdest freaking idiot ever. And so basically it was these 4 characters and them becoming friends and sort of their journey through this camp together. And they are very different characters. Like, I know that it's like a book camp, so it's like, it's not like they all like books. 2 of them hate books. Like, the one girl only goes to the camp because she doesn't want like to not be with her best friend, and then the other guy is there because his dad thought it was a boot camp, but it's a book camp. Which is a funny pun, honestly. Would I ever revisit it? Absolutely freaking not. Just because I even knew while writing that like I was never going to pursue it. It was just like for fun. And I learned so much while I did it, so I'm not upset with writing it or spending time on it. But ultimately, I don't think that it was the story for me. I'm not like a romantic writer, really, or like a fun time in the summer type of a writer. I'm more like, I like to put deeper stuff in there, and I like to have sort of meaningful action, fun fantasy stuff. When I first wrote that book, I was convinced that it was like the best writing that I had ever done, and when I revisit it, it is absolutely not. A lot of the dialogue, which I thought was hilarious, is like, it does not hold up. Where it's like, that's not even freaking fun. That's just like so cringy. There's like this old shed, and the camp renovated it to be like a library, but like nobody goes there or does anything, so it's just like piled of books. And they like heard a sound in there, and then the one like funny character was like, it's the goblin, his name is Gene, or something like that. And it's like the dumbest freaking joke ever. And like, it is called back to like 4 or 5 different, like in the epilogue where it's all emotional, they literally reference Gene the Goblin. And it's not funny. It is funny. No, Gene the Goblin is my favorite character, but like, it is like, it's pretty like middle grade. Not to talk down on middle grade, but I've read a lot of like middle grade books where there's a lot of humor where it's like not that funny, but if you're like 12 or 13, you like maybe smile at it or think it's fine. But it doesn't really hold up very well. But in a lot of ways, there are like certain elements of it that were really close to me, where I don't know if I would feel comfortable sharing them. Not because like I'm like there's anything personal in there. Not that it's like fan fiction, but there are certain themes that I drew from my real experience as like a human person, and I would feel weird presenting it. And then the idea of people being like, is this kind of, are you writing about your own experience in some weird way? I don't write characters that are based off of myself, but out of all the characters I've ever written, the character Samson is very much similar to me. But he's very similar to me like at a very specific point in my life, as like a kid who loved to read books when I was like 14 or 15. And so I think he was based off of like a very like insecure part of who I used to be. And so a lot of his insecurities are based off of stuff that I had felt when I was like in middle school, where it's like while I was writing, I sort of grown past that, but also I was very aware that there was stuff that I had felt. And so a lot of his journey was sort of overcoming that. And so I do feel weird presenting that just because I do feel like it's kind of vulnerable. And I think when I do writing videos like that, like I want them to be sort of fun. Besides that, I have like seeds of ideas where they're like so basic and I haven't worked on them at all, but I think they're fun. So I'll just read some of those so you can get an idea of where my head has been at. A small town where a reporter starts to kill people so that there is news for her to cover. That was going to be like a short story. Or maybe it could be a full, I don't know. I would have to work on it more. But like it's a fun idea. It'd be more of like a funny like TV series. Like it's a small town, nothing's going on. This girl hates reporting on the weather and like reporting on like this cat got lost. So she's like, you know what? I'm gonna kill someone. And like she's always the first one on the scene. Basically it just says a torturer in a war falls in love with the person they interrogate. So it's gonna be like a fantasy type thing, or like a fantasy type war. And so it was gonna be like this interrogator who kidnapped someone from the opposite side, like a spy from the opposite side, and they're torturing them for information. And so I was planning on telling it where it was sort of cutting between them talking to each other and them forming a relationship, but also the person telling their story, sort of Evelyn Hugo style, where it's like two people are talking, but also it will cut just to the story, and like we understand while reading that this is just them telling the other person. And so they were gonna realize that they have like a lot more in common than they thought they did. Basically they're gonna kind of fall in love with each other, and I didn't know what was gonna happen from there. I just knew that like they're on opposite sides of like this fantasy war. I didn't even know what the conflict was, just that like the entire book they're just like sitting there. And so it was sort of like I didn't know if the person was gonna be like a refugee who like joined the thing and like was fighting all that. I thought it would be really cool. I haven't really worked on it. It would be a standalone for sure, but I think it would be a cool thing. That would probably be something I would do for fun, or just like if I needed something to work on for a little while, that would be fun. The next one is similar to the news reporter killing people. I think this was like based off of that. It says, a morgue owner lives in a town with all healthy young people and decides to kill people to keep business. So basically, I'm really into people like killing people for business. Like the reporter would be fun, but also like I just imagine this like bitter old man like killing people just so like he can like bury people and like do stuff like that. Straight up lit. There's that. And then finally is an idea that I randomly had, and I'm actually kind of lit about this. I might write it. Basically the idea is there's like a group of like junkies, and they like do hard drugs and like drink all the time and party a lot, and they're like young adults or whatever, like maybe in their late 20s. And so they like party all the time. They go to like this really rich nice club in like a nicer area, and like it's like, you know, they're all hammered and doing like coke and whatever. Like they're like really rough freaking people. And so after this, they like go out into the neighborhood and they see like these beautiful giant rich houses. I didn't know how, but basically somehow they find out that this man is like freaking loaded, and like he has like a safe in his house or something. And so to get this money, they're planning a robbery. And so basically what they do is two of these junkies decide that they're gonna like rent out this house. So they sort of disguise themselves as suburban people. So it was gonna be like that makeover moment where it's like this chick with like bleach blonde hair and like long like heavy eyeliner and like wears really skimpy clothing, is like gets like a mom haircut, and like they're suddenly acting all fake and stuff. And so basically they're trying to get close to this family so that they can like somehow try to figure out how to like get into the safe, and so they can get their friends to sneak in and they can get it and stuff. And so that was going to be really fun. And I think it's going to be fun. It would be fun. It feels more like a TV series though, where I could feel that being like a really good like mini series on Netflix, you know? I would debate writing like a script of that because it'd be so fun. I don't know if it would go very far or if it would even be a book. It would be hard to translate. I feel like with like the transformation, I feel like it would be better for visual medium, but who freaking knows? So whatever. So that is all of the book projects that I worked on. I've been talking for freaking forever and it is freaking late. What the heck? I got so much work to do. I know that it has been another month with no videos, which is really upsetting on my part. If you think for a hot minute that I don't care about that, you would be wrong. I thought that being home and like doing online classes would be easier, but it's freaking not. Like, I think the most frustrating thing is not only do a lot of professors like change up the workload for the rest of the semester, but like I think because they feel like online classes are easier, they keep assigning random freaking assignments. Like just today's Wednesday, okay? And I randomly had a professor email us like this afternoon, I guess. And he was like, you have like a 4-page, so a 4-page assignment due on Friday. That's in 2 days. It's Wednesday night, and he just sent that out. And especially because next week is the last week of actual classes before finals start to happen, where it's like, I'm just eager for it to be over. Like, straight up, I'm over it. I'm just freaking over it. And it's been hard. And it's definitely hard being home, but also it's hard, like, having to do school stuff and just everything else going on. It just feels weird. So... what the frig is going on? Let's talk about what's gonna be coming up next. The next video I want to post is gonna be the Divergent video, which I've been talking about for a hot friggin' minute. It is gonna be a video where I reread Divergent. I'm gonna just be talking about it. It's gonna be fun. It's not gonna be too difficult to do, so I'll be able to, when I start doing it, it's gonna be up pretty quickly after that. And then I want to do a video where I read and review the new Hunger Games book. It's gonna be called either, I have a couple options in my head. It's either going to be, does the new Hunger Games book suck? Or I read the new Hunger Games book and it sucks. If it's good, it will be like, does this book be bad? And if it is bad, it'll be, this is freaking awful. So I don't know which one it's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be good. If it's not, then whatever. Basically, it's just going to be like, similar to the Divergent video, it's going to be like, is this good? Camera died. Oh God, okay. So very quickly, I will just say, thank you guys for pledging. I hate that I don't post videos that often. I really freaking do. I'm hoping that when summer comes, I'll be able to make more videos. And thank you guys for being pledged on here. I appreciate all of your support so much. And this month was stressful and weird, and I think it has been for a lot of people, but I've just felt weird. There's that. I love leaving like shady hints at my trauma, but thank you guys for why is it? Is there a ghost in here? Why is it doing that? I swear to God, if I don't post 3 videos in May, I am going to lose my freaking mind. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being supportive. I am hoping that I will be around more often. If not, drag me, please. Okay, I love you. I don't know how to turn this camera off. Bye.